Our gospel passage today tells us an interesting story of a man who's healed and gained sight. I'm sure if you're a Christian, you may have heard the story many of times before and may have become familiar, but if you haven't heard it before, you're going to be hearing it again in a different way. But for those, what I would like to do then is, what I'd like for us to do is to spend some time reliving this moment, not just rehearing the story, but putting ourselves in the scene, in the moment, as if we're a bystander watching what's happening. And over the course of this time, we'll be breaking it up into 6 or 4 or 5, 6 scenes. I can't remember how much. And the tension rising throughout and climaxing with the Pharisees kicking the man out, but then ending with him worshiping Jesus. And as I announce these scenes, just again, close your eyes and imagine you're there. Imagine you are among the people that have seen this and are watching it fold out right in front of their eyes. So with that in mind, I want you to close your eyes as we enter into scene 1. Jesus flees the temple walls. You find yourself in Jerusalem. It's in the fall. It's a Mediterranean climate, so the weather is pleasant. There's a cool breeze. There's a smell of salt in the air. In the distance, you hear some commotion around a single man. You're near the temple and you hear something going on inside. And as you go into the temple courts, you hear things getting more and more heated. There's a group of Pharisees surrounding this man. And you find yourself uncomfortable because he's there and he's defending himself. And they're yelling at him. And he speaks back to them and they yell at him again. The Pharisees end up getting so mad, they start looking for stones in the yard. But this lone man ducks away from them and flees the temple grounds. As your eyes follow this man, you follow him outside the walls. And you now see a man come into clear picture of it being Jesus. Him and the disciples are walking away and they see a blind man. And you see the disciples lean into Jesus, get a little closer and ask a question. Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? You hear Jesus respond to them, but then you see him walk up to the man and do something mysterious. We'll end our first scene there. Jesus has been busy up to this point. Not only had he just finished confronting the Pharisees about being sent by God and being greater than Abraham, he also just finished confronting them about the woman who was caught in adultery and prevented her from being stoned. All this probably led the Pharisees to hate Jesus, and hence they wanted to stone him and for perceived blasphemy. But Jesus escaped, and he sees this blind man. And then an interesting question gets asked. Who sinned? Who sinned? At this time, it was understood that sin was almost passed down from generation to generation. In order for this man to be born blind, his parents must have sinned. It could have been the mother's sin that did this. She was carrying the baby after all, and maybe from the point of conception until the man was given birth, even a little leaven would leaven the bread. And so maybe over time, this 9 months, maybe this baby was poisoned by her sin. And that's why he was born blind. There was so much in there that he was poisoned. Or it could have been the father's sin. Maybe he committed so much sin from the time of his birth and to the point of conception that there was no way the child could have been born without some sort of defect, because the man was carrying sin for so long, and much of it grievous. N.T. Wright speaks of this kind of reality in an interesting way. He says this. He says, thinking like this is a way of trying to hold on to a belief in God's justice. if something in the world seems unfair, but if you believe in a God who is both all-powerful, all-loving, and all-fair, one way of getting around the problem is to say that it only seems unfair, but it actually isn't. There was, after all, some secret sin being punished. This is a comfortable sort of thing to believe if you happen to be well off, well fed, and healthy in body and mind. In other words, if no one can accuse you of some secret previous sin. It's a comfortable sort of thing to believe. He goes on to say that we must stop thinking of sin like this moral slot machine that rewards people based on either the good thing we do or the bad thing we do. A coin of bad goes in, I pull the machine, and it gives me something bad in return. And we hear this even today, trickling into our own conversations, into our own thoughts, into the own way we do things. Well, if I just gave more money to the poor, or if I read my Bible more, or if I had prayed more, God would have rewarded me accordingly, and He would have given me more. Right? Or now does this mean you should go and do no good at all, or not do good? No, it'd be ludicrous. Good behavior and action typically leads to good results, but not always. Kindness is sometimes scorned. Some drunkards always get away with it. Before I get too long-winded here about the reality of sin and how it affects the world, I want us to enter into the second scene. Close your eyes. We begin the second scene. The man is healed. After Jesus addressed his disciples, you see him go over to the man. He leans down close to him, probably stabling himself against the wall so he might not lose his perspective of where he's at, sitting there, waiting for people to recognize him. Jesus then spits on the ground, creates a little bit of mud with that, rubs the mud on his eyes, tells him to go wash in the pool of Siloam. And then Jesus and his disciples seemingly go on their way, just continue with their journey. And this man, using the wall, helps get himself up. And you watch him stumble and make his way slowly to the pool. He goes down and grabs some water and splashes it in his face. And his eyes are opened. He could see again. The people around him seem confused and put off as they begin talking with him, seeming like they're in disbelief. But this man, with joy and excitement in his voice, continues to assure them that he has been healed. He tells the story over and over and over and over again about some man bringing him who healed him. But as he continues to tell the story, the confusion and uncertainty of the people take a more hostile posture. And they seize him. And they rush him to the Pharisees. We end the scene there. You can open your eyes. If you're familiar with the story, you may have noticed an intentional departure at the end of it. And maybe how it's perceived or been explained to you, but how did we get there? What strikes me a part of the story is that how the neighbors responded to seeing this man. Not only are they're not just random people near the temple who saw this man. They're using the word neighbor, the ones who would live near him or next to him. They knew this man. They should have been closely affiliated with him. But those who did not know this man, they were torn if they knew him or not. Suddenly, people who would walk by him every day, people who should know this man, were confused if this was the same man or not, as if they had never seen him in their life before. I believe this says more about the crowd than it does the healed man. Do they have eyes to see? Are they paying attention? Do they even care about their neighbor? And additionally, the sudden reason for the seizure of this man and bringing him to the Pharisees is to bring the same tone that John used in chapter 8, where the woman who was caught in adultery was seized and taken before the Pharisees. It's the same Greek word. It's the same meaning there, that he was seized. It's almost as if he had done something wrong. That by becoming able to see, by being healed, he was in the wrong. And he needed to explain himself to the religious leaders. It wasn't something gentle. It wasn't like, oh, let's go hit pop, just go to the Pharisees, right? And then just skipping along there. No, it was taking him by the arm, grabbing him, dragging him to the temple courts, that he might be judged by the leaders. We enter into scene 3, chaos among the Pharisees. I invite you to close your eyes again. You follow the group of people bringing this man to the Pharisees, where he was questioned over and over and over how he received his eyesight. And with every encounter, you continue to see this blind man in disbelief. He's in disbelief about what he has to tell them. And you sit and you watch, and a good chunk of time is passing by as if they're waiting for something. Eventually, an older man and an older woman arrive. But they have this bit of nervousness about them. They seem uncomfortable, uneasy, worried. And you discover as you listen in that these two people were the blind man's parents. And they confirm it. Yes, this is our son. This is him. But they didn't want to get too involved. And they point back to their son as they're being now interrogated and questioned in this moment. They say, hey, he's old enough to answer for himself. Don't look at us. Don't look at us. We don't want to be a part of this. And the Pharisees now seem confident in their assessment that when they approach the seeing man, he proclaims yet again that Jesus healed him, and now he can see. Baffled by his unwavering conviction that he was healed, they began again to recount the story of his healing, as if when they hear it again for a second time, they're going to understand a secret hidden formula or something he didn't say in the first and second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth cross-examination. But you see almost this man in the middle dumbfounded by their lack of belief. And again, posturing towards them, teaching them, rather than trying to defend himself. But after hearing the story yet again, the Pharisees deny this man and they cast him out of their presence. End scene. You may open your eyes. It always amazes me how one miracle can set the Pharisees off so much. Over and over again in the Gospels, those in control of the temple and its rituals with their nice buildings and political influence in the city continue to be threatened by the light of God breaking through the darkness to reveal his glory. And throughout history, the same thing continued to be the case. Time and time again, when the Spirit moves and challenges the structures of the church in place, it causes ruckus amongst the institution because they don't know how to reconcile the miracles that might be in front of them compared to the institution and structure they might have. And I don't want to devalue the Jews that did believe, because there were some among them that did believe, but as Christians we should take seriously the warning here. The warning that we should always be on the lookout for what God is doing, where he's doing it, how he's doing it, when he's doing it, and in his way. We're not the judges. We are the ones who sometimes are baffled by the way that God moves in this world. I even think about a modern artist and it still baffles me sometimes, but I choose to believe, who has video proof of him skating and breaking his back, getting the x-rays and seeing the bones broken, but also within 10 days being able to walk again, and then going in for x-rays and those bones being healed. And then 10 days after that, going again to do a concert. It's amazing. It's a miracle. It's incredible. It's almost unbelievable. And my skeptical mind makes me want to not believe. And yet the evidence in front of me is stacked there such that I almost have to believe. And this is the tension of the Pharisees. This man does see, but this couldn't be God. Maybe this was another God. This couldn't be our God. Maybe it's the devil, or maybe it's another influence wanting to pruse and bring the Jews in and steal them, to draw them in that way. But maybe it is our God. I don't know. But we're worried. And so instead of believing, we're going to kick him out of the temple, put him off to the side. I want to enter our last scene, scene 4. Jesus meets up with the man. I invite you to close your eyes one last time. As you follow this man from a distance, trying not to be seen or heard by him, trying not to draw suspicion to yourself, you find him sitting by himself. Sitting by himself, disbelief of what just happened, uncertain what to do. And seemingly out of nowhere, Jesus was seeking this man and finds him. And he asks him, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" You look deep into the healed man's eyes, and a glimmer appears there. His eyes lighten up with a familiar sound of the same voice that told him to wash in the pool. Tears begin to fill his eyes. His lips tremble with excitement, having a sense of what is coming, and with courage in his voice asks, "And who is he, sir, that I may believe in him?" Jesus, with the compassion of a father who's looking at his lost son, who's looking at his sheep, has just been found, gently tells him, "You have seen him. You have seen him, and it is he who is speaking to you." The healed man, overcome with emotion, tears streaming down his face at this point, falls to his knees, trembling with joy, and says, "Lord, I believe." As you begin to leave the scene and get farther away, sounds of worship, laughter, joy, tears fill the air as he worships Jesus. End scene. You may open your eyes. The amazing thing about this story in the gospel, compared to many of the other ones, is that Jesus is doing all of the initiation. Having left the temple, he found the blind man. He saw him and he went to him. And he healed him. And then after the man was cast out of the temple courts, lonely, confused, and questioning, it's Jesus who hears about it and then seeks after that man again and finds him. So many other stories point out the others initiating, like the woman seeing Jesus and touching the fringe of his cloak that she might be healed. But in this story, Jesus is initiating. And it's no wonder that the people who created the lectionary paired this story of Jesus with Psalm 23. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He knows his sheep, He takes care of them. He leaves the 99 to find the one. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. In the middle of the Jews and the Pharisees being threatened by this man and casting him out, Jesus sets a table for him and invites him to sit. Jesus is doing the initiation through this whole story. But the other interesting thing is that even though this man could see, there were others who were blind. There were others that were still blind. Throughout the Gospel of John, this passage and this theme of light breaking in carries throughout, which is why even before he says, now is my time to work because there's about to be darkness, the day when he would die and he would no longer be walking on earth. And in that day, no one would work. So while he is here, while the light is there, it would work and it would go and it would be about. This is why even in John chapter 1, the theme for Christmas Day, the historic reading is John chapter 1. Because, again, it's the light breaking in. It is the light, God being made incarnate, that is light coming into the world. But it was those who actually could see that were blind to this scenario. That were blind to the Savior of the world, that were blind to the healing that was happened to them in front of their own eyes, that were so blind they could not even recognize the man. And no matter how hard they dug or who proclaimed it to them, the realities of this transformation they could not believe and were blind to the truth. And it shows us that all of us can struggle with blindness. We can all struggle with not being able to see. And so the question then becomes, how am I blind? How are you blind? Are you blind to the truth of Jesus, who died for your sins and rose from the dead, proclaiming his victory over sin and death once and for all? Or maybe you're blind to your own sin. Maybe your own skepticism creates a hardness of heart in you that could not see God working or believing in miracles like this. The skepticalness that allows you to think that God is not moving unless he's doing it through you or around you or near you or whatever it might be. And maybe you're even blind to how sin is affecting your work. You don't realize that the struggles you face with some people and some of the toil in your work, the conflict, all created because sin is pervading even those areas. The ground has been made hard. Thorns are growing up from it. And maybe you're blind because pride is in the way. You have no conscious awareness that your attitude towards the difficulties of having friends and finding them and keeping them, the way you're treating your spouse is because of the sin of pride preventing you from caring more for others than for yourself. Every person struggles with some sort of blindness. And this is why I continue to mention that the light that is in us, the light of Christ, would go shine in the dark places so that when it would go there, he would meet you and show you the ways in which you are sinning, the ways in which you have become blind because you're so accustomed to the way you're living now that you can't see the ways God wants to transform you. And the season of Lent and fasting is not just to stop sinning. We don't give up food, we don't give up things because we need to stop sinning. We should just stop sinning because God has called us to a life of purity and holiness and is moving inside of us, constantly transforming us so that we might not sin as much. But instead, we remove things we enjoy. We remove things in our lives that might be keeping us from seeing the light of Christ, that might prevent us from allowing the light of Christ to be there. It's the moment where you take the the TV entertainment center and you pull it back and you realize just how dirty it is. So we need to instead remove those things so that the light can penetrate even to those places. So I ask you again, how are you blind? How have you been blinded by sin? How have you allowed yourself to become comfortable and easy and relaxed in this world, to slowly but surely let the effects of sin draw you farther from Christ and not towards Him? May our eyes be opened. May we believe and see God working in this world, and may we be willing to move aside those things and to find the light in the dark places.